Man buys an old yacht to escape his past, but finds something unexpected. David Wilson still felt the weight of the words he had heard 3 days earlier. His wife of 15 years had confessed everything in front of the attorney. The affair with his partner had been going on for 2 years, and now they wanted to get married. The 42-year-old man had lost not only his wife, but also the company he had built with so much sweat. That's when he made the most impulsive decision of his life. He would sell everything he had left and buy that abandoned yacht in San Diego Harbor that he had seen in the online ad. The boat cost next to nothing precisely because it was in terrible condition, but David didn't care. He just wanted to escape, to sail away from all his painful memories. The seller, an elderly man named Walter, tried to discourage him several times during the negotiation. "Look, son, this boat's been sitting for over 5 years. It's going to take a lot of work to get it seaworthy again," said Walter, scratching his grey beard. "No problem." "I have time," replied David, signing the papers without even looking properly. "And experience with boats? Because the sea doesn't forgive beginners' mistakes. I'll learn by doing." Walter shook his head but handed over the keys anyway. The money was already in his account, and everyone was responsible for themselves. 2 weeks later, David was at the harbor loading his few belongings onto the yacht. He had sold the apartment, the car, everything. He had kept only some clothes, basic tools, and the money left after paying off the debts the separation had generated. The Sea Spirit, as the boat was called, was almost 20 meters long. The white paint was peeling, the deck was full of dark stains, and the smell of dampness filled every space. But to David, it represented freedom. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. It was almost 8 in the evening when David went down to the engine room for the first time to check the condition of the engine. The flashlight he carried in his hands carefully illuminated every corner, revealing rusty pipes and electrical wires that would need to be replaced. That's when he heard it. A soft, muffled cry that seemed to come from the back of the compartment. David stopped, thinking it was his imagination. But the sound repeated, this time clearer. It was a baby crying. David's heart raced. He followed the sound with the flashlight, moving aside empty boxes and moldy tarps. In the darkest corner of the engine room, huddled behind the engine, was a young woman holding a small child. "Don't scream, please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I can explain." David stood frozen for a few seconds. The woman looked about 25 with long, messy brown hair and dirty, wrinkled clothes. The baby in her arms couldn't have been more than a few months old. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" asked David, still in shock. "My name is Jennifer. I have nowhere to go," she said, holding the baby tighter. "I saw someone had bought the boat and thought I'd have to leave, but when you arrived today, I hid. I didn't know what to do." "How long have you been here?" 3 weeks. David ran his hand through his hair, trying to process the situation. 3 weeks. The woman had been living there for 3 weeks, hidden, with a baby. "And how have you been surviving?" "I go out at dawn to get water from the pier's faucet, and I take leftover food from the harbor restaurants before the trash is collected," said Jennifer, lowering her eyes in shame. The baby started crying louder, and she tried to calm him by rocking slowly. "Look, I'm not going to call the police," said David, putting away the flashlight. "But I need to understand what's going on. Can you tell me?" Jennifer hesitated for a long moment before speaking. "I ran away from home. My family, they wanted me to give up my son for adoption. They said a single mother would be a disgrace to the family name. And the baby's father? He disappeared when he found out about the pregnancy. He was the son of my parents' friends, someone they considered suitable for me. But when things got complicated, he just vanished." David sat on a nearby crate, still trying to process everything. Here he was, thinking he had lost everything in life, and he found a woman in an even worse situation than his. "What's your name?" asked Jennifer. David Wilson." "Mr. David, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but could you possibly let me stay just a few more days, until I can get myself together? I promise I won't be in the way. You won't even notice I'm here." "You? You and your family. I imagine you'll be living on the boat, right? David let out a bitter laugh. It's just me. And I don't know if this boat will ever leave this spot. I'm a bit lost too. Jennifer looked at him with surprise. There was something in that man's voice, a sadness she recognized. It was the same tone she heard in her own voice when she spoke about her problems. May I ask why you bought a boat in terrible condition to live on alone? David was silent for a few moments, debating internally whether he should tell his story to a complete stranger. But maybe that was exactly what he needed. Someone who didn't know him, who didn't have pity or pre-established judgments. My wife left me for my business partner. We lost the company in the division of assets. I sold everything that was left and bought this boat to escape New York City. I wanted to go somewhere nobody knew me. I'm sorry, said Jennifer sincerely. And you? Where is your family from? San Diego, actually. My father has an export company here at the harbor. My mother comes from a traditional family, you know how it is. Appearances are everything to them. The baby had stopped crying and was now looking at David with curiosity. It was a boy, judging by the blue clothes he was wearing. What's his name? Ethan. Ethan James. Beautiful name. David extended his finger to the baby, who tried to grab it with his tiny hands. It had been years since he had been around such young children. He and his ex-wife were never able to have children. Jennifer, you can stay, he said finally, at least until we figure out what to do. But we have to get things in order. This cabin is no place for a child. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. Really? You'd really let me? We're two runaways in the same boat. Literally, said David, trying to make a joke to break the tension. But we have to establish some rules. And first, I need to know if you understand anything about boats. A little. My grandfather was a fisherman. I spent many summers with him when I was a child. He taught me about engines, sails, basic navigation. David was surprised. That could be very useful. So you can help me figure out what needs to be fixed. Of course, in fact, I already took a look at the engine while I was hiding here. There are a few parts that need to be replaced, but nothing that would prevent the boat from working. For the first time in weeks, David felt a small spark of hope. Maybe this unexpected situation could be the solution to both their problems. All right, tomorrow morning we'll do a full inspection of the boat. You show me what needs to be fixed and I'll get the parts. But today let's go up. You and Ethan need a more suitable place to sleep. Are you sure I won't be a bother? Jennifer, I bought a boat without knowing how to sail to escape a life that fell apart. You've been living in a cabin for 3 weeks with a baby. I think we both need help. She smiled for the first time since David had found her. It was a shy smile, but genuine. Thank you, Mr. David. Really. Just David is fine. The three went up to the main deck. David showed Jennifer the available rooms and insisted she choose the best one for her and Ethan. Then they improvised a simple supper with the supplies David had brought. How long has it been since you had a real meal? Asked David, watching how Jennifer devoured the sandwich. A few days. I didn't want to risk leaving the hideout too much. And diapers? Milk for Ethan? They were almost gone. Tomorrow I would have had to try to get more. David made a mental list of things they would need to get the next day. Food, diapers, clean clothes for Jennifer, basic medicine, and after that, engine parts. Jennifer, can I ask a personal question? Of course. Did you try talking to your parents, explaining that you don't want to give Ethan up for adoption? Jennifer's face closed off immediately. I tried. My father said I had brought shame to the family and that the only way to fix it was by giving the child to a suitable couple. My mother said nothing. She just cried and agreed with him. And there are no other relatives? Uncles, grandparents? My grandfather, the fisherman I mentioned, passed away 2 years ago. He was the only one who would have supported me. The others are all like my father. David felt anger growing inside him. How could a family abandon a daughter and a grandson like that? He, who had lost the chance to be a father so many times, couldn't understand how someone could discard a child as if it were a problem to be solved. And you? Do you have plans? I mean, after you get the boat working? Asked Jennifer. No idea. I thought about sailing along the coast, maybe head up to the Florida Keys, find some small town where I could start over. Alone? That was the original plan. And now... David looked at Jennifer and then at Ethan, who was sleeping peacefully in his mother's arms. He felt as if fate had placed these two people in his path, for some reason he didn't fully understand yet. Now I'm not so sure anymore. Maybe the company would be good. That night, David had the best quality sleep in weeks. There was no noise from cars or neighbors, just the gentle sound of waves hitting the boat's hull. And for the first time since the separation, he didn't feel completely alone in the world. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The next morning, David woke up to the smell of coffee. For a moment, still half asleep, he thought he was dreaming. It had been a long time since someone had made coffee for him to wake up to. He went up to the boat's kitchen and found Jennifer trying to organize the supplies he had brought. "Good morning, I hope you don't mind. I found coffee and an old coffee maker. Thought I'd make some for both of us." "Not at all. I'm actually grateful. And Ethan?" "Still sleeping. He woke up twice during the night, but went back to sleep quickly." David poured the coffee and sat at the boat's small table. Jennifer had managed to make everything more organized in just a few hours. "You have a knack for this," he said, looking around. "I grew up helping my mom around the house. She always said a woman needed to know how to take care of a home." "And what did you do before all this?" "I was studying law at Columbia University. I was in my final year." David almost choked on his coffee. "Law? Really? Why the surprise?" "Nothing, it's just, well, it could be useful. I'm having some legal issues because of the separation." Jennifer nodded, understanding the situation. "If you want, I can take a look at the papers. I'm not graduated yet, but I know the theory pretty well." "That would be great. But first, let's check out that engine you mentioned yesterday." The two went down to the cabin, leaving Ethan sleeping in the room. Jennifer showed David every problem she had identified with the engine during her weeks hiding there. "Here, oil leaking. This gasket needs replacing," she said, pointing to a part. "And these belts are too worn. These wires also need to be replaced." David was impressed with her technical knowledge. "Your grandfather really taught you well. He used to say that at sea you can't depend on others when something breaks. Either you know how to fix it or you're lost." Wise words. They spent the whole morning cataloguing the issues and making a list of necessary parts. There were many things, but nothing impossible to get. "I'll go into town to buy these parts. Do you want to come along?" Jennifer hesitated. "I'm not sure that's a good idea. My parents know a lot of people in San Diego. If someone recognizes me, I understand. Then I'll go alone. You stay with Ethan and make a list of things you both need. Clothes, diapers, food." "David, I can't let you spend money on me. You're already being too kind by letting me stay." "Jennifer, look at me," said David, stopping what he was doing. "I was completely lost when I found you here. You gave me a purpose, a reason to make this boat work. It's not charity, it's partnership." She smiled, once again touched by his kindness. "All right, but when the boat is working, I'll find a way to help you pay for everything." "Deal." David went into town and spent the whole day going through marine supply stores and supermarkets. He bought everything on the list, plus a few extra things he thought might be useful. When he returned to the boat in the late afternoon, he found a scene that surprised him. Jennifer had managed to completely clean the main deck. The boat was unrecognizable. "How did you manage to do all this?" he asked, carrying the bags. "Ethan slept a lot today, and I needed to keep myself busy. I hope you don't mind." "Mind? The boat has never been this clean." They spent the rest of the afternoon organizing the purchases and planning the repairs for the coming days. Jennifer had prepared a simple but tasty dinner, and the three ate together on the deck, watching the sunset over the harbor. "David, can I ask you a question?" said Jennifer, while Ethan played with a spoon. "Sure. Why are you being so kind to me? Most people would have turned me in to the authorities or sent me away." David thought for a moment before answering. "You know, Jennifer, in the last few months I felt like the whole world had turned its back on me. My wife, my partner, our friends, everyone chose a side, and it wasn't mine." When I found you here, I saw someone going through something similar, maybe worse. I thought that if I didn't help when I could, I'd be just like all those people. You're a good person, David. I'm trying to be. That night, before going to sleep, David brought the separation papers for Jennifer to look at. She studied each document carefully. David, there are some things here that aren't right, she said, after an hour analyzing everything. What do you mean? Your former partner managed to get a much larger share of the company than he should have been entitled to, and your ex-wife. She got a portion of assets that, technically, were only yours before the marriage. But it's all signed already. Yes, but within a 6-month period you can still contest some clauses, especially if you can prove there was bad faith in the negotiations. David felt a mix of hope and anger. Hope because maybe he could recover some of what he had lost. Anger because he realized he had been deceived even more deeply than he had thought. Do you think it's worth trying? It depends on how much you're willing to fight. It will be draining, and there's no guarantee of results. I need to think about it. Of course. But if you decide to try, I can help you gather the resources. In the following days, they established a routine. Mornings were dedicated to boat repairs, with Jennifer teaching David about engines and him learning quickly. Afternoons were for taking care of Ethan and organizing the vessel. Evenings were for talking and planning the future. David discovered that Jennifer was an extremely intelligent and determined person. She had been one of the top students in college before getting pregnant. Her parents, however, believed that a daughter should marry well and take care of the family, not have a professional career. They never understood why I wanted to study law, Jennifer shared on one of those evenings of conversation. They said it was a man's thing, that I was wasting my time. And why did you choose law? Because of my grandfather. He always had problems with middlemen who exploited small fishermen. I wanted to understand the laws, to be able to help people like him. David was moved by the story. He had found not only a partner for the boat repairs, but someone with whom he shared important values. After a week of intense work, the engine finally started. The initial noise was frightening, but it soon settled into a steady, reliable rumble. "We did it!" shouted Jennifer, hugging David without thinking. It was only when they separated that both realized the closeness and felt a strange awkwardness. There was something growing between them, but neither knew how to handle it. "Shall we test it by sailing?" suggested David, trying to break the tension. "Of course, Ethan will love it." They went out with the boat for the first time, just a short trip around the harbor. Ethan laughed at the gentle rocking, and Jennifer guided David through the basic maneuvers. "You're a natural teacher," said David, "and you learn fast." When they returned to the dock, there was a man in a suit waiting on the pier. David recognized him immediately. It was Attorney Michael, his ex-wife's lawyer. "Good afternoon, David," said the lawyer with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Attorney Michael, what brings you here?" "I need to talk to you about some details of the separation. May I come aboard?" David looked at Jennifer, who was holding Ethan tightly. She had turned pale. "Actually, I'd rather talk right here. What is it?" "Your ex-wife wants to review some clauses of the agreement, specifically about this boat." "What do you mean?" "She claims that part of the money used to buy the vessel came from marital assets. She wants half the value." David felt the blood rush to his head. "That's ridiculous. I bought this boat with the money from selling my car, which was mine before the marriage. You'll have to prove that in court." "Here's the notification," said Attorney Michael, handing over an envelope. "Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing." David took the envelope with hands trembling in anger. Jennifer approached him. "David, can I see that?" she whispered. Before David could respond, Attorney Michael noticed Jennifer for the first time. His gaze scanned her face carefully. "Excuse me, but aren't you Jennifer Thompson, daughter of businessman Richard Thompson?" Jennifer froze. She had been recognized. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, trying to step back. "I'm sure it's you. Your family has been looking for you for weeks. Your mother is desperate." My family knows very well where to find me if they want to, Jennifer replied firmly. Attorney Michael looked from David to Jennifer, then to the baby, and David could see the gears turning in the lawyer's head. Interesting. Very interesting, he murmured, picking up his phone. What are you going to do? Asked David. My duty. The Thompson family is offering a reward for information about their daughter's whereabouts. Wait, shouted David, but Attorney Michael was already dialing. Jennifer looked at David in despair. He's going to tell them where I am. My parents will come to take Ethan. Calm down, let's think of a solution, said David, but his mind went blank. Attorney Michael ended the call with a satisfied smile. Richard Thompson is coming personally to pick up his daughter. He should be here within an hour. You can't do this, protested David. Actually, I can and I should. And I suggest you don't get involved in this, David. You already have enough problems to solve. The attorney walked off the pier, leaving David and Jennifer in a panic. What are we going to do? Asked Jennifer, tears in her eyes. I don't know. Let me think. David opened the envelope and quickly read the notification. It was worse than he had imagined. His ex-wife not only wanted half of the boat, but was also challenging other sales he had made. Jennifer, listen. Take Ethan and go to the room. When your father arrives, I'll talk to him. I'll try to explain the situation. David, you don't know my father. He won't listen. Even so, it's better if I try. An hour later, as expected, a black car arrived at the harbour. A tall, well-dressed man got out, followed by two other men who were clearly security. Richard Thompson was exactly as David had imagined, imposing, authoritative, used to having his orders obeyed. He boarded the boat without asking for permission. Where is my daughter? He asked, getting straight to the point. First, I need you to hear me out, said David, trying to stay calm. I don't have time for this. I want my daughter and my grandson. Your grandson? Of course. I've already arranged for a suitable family to adopt the child. Jennifer is coming back home and forgetting this rebellious phase. David felt anger rising inside him. You can't force your daughter to give up her own son. I can and I will. Jennifer is a minor in the eyes of the family until she marries. Her decisions go through me. She's 25 years old, and she's being supported by me, or rather, she was. Now she's being supported by you, from what I understand. David realized he had fallen into a trap. Richard had been informed about the situation in detail. Jennifer is an adult woman. She can make her own decisions. Not while she's running away like a criminal. Do you know that hiding a person sought by the family can bring legal trouble for you? David didn't know if that was true, but Richard spoke with such authority that he seemed to know the laws well. Jennifer, shouted Richard, I know you're there. Come out now. I won't waste any more time on this. Jennifer appeared at the bedroom door, holding Ethan. She was pale but tried to appear strong. Daddy, get your things. We're leaving. I'm not going. What do you mean you're not going? You're my daughter. I'm an adult woman with a son. I don't need your permission to live my life. Richard took a few steps toward Jennifer, but David stepped between them. Mr. Richard, please, let's talk like civilized people. Step aside, young man. This is none of your business. Jennifer and Ethan are under my protection, so yes, it is my business. Richard studied David for a few seconds. Do you have any idea who I am? I do. And I know that you're a father and a grandfather. You should want what's best for your family. And I do. That's why I'm taking Jennifer out of this ridiculous situation. Daddy, I'm fine, said Jennifer. Ethan is fine. We don't need your help. You're living in an old boat. Is that a life for a child? It's better than living in a family that doesn't want me, Jennifer replied firmly. Richard seemed genuinely hurt by those words. How can you say that? Of course we want you. You're our only daughter. Then why do you want to force me to give up my son? Because you don't have the means to raise a child alone. You don't have a job, you don't have a home, you have nothing. She's not alone, said David, and we're working to give Ethan a good life. Who are you in her life? Asked Richard suspiciously. David hesitated. The truth was he himself didn't know exactly what his relationship with Jennifer was. Were they partners, friends, something more? We're companions, he finally said. Companions? Richard let out a sarcastic laugh. A man she's known for how long? 1 week? 2? Dad, David helped me when I needed it most. He's a good person. Jennifer, you're very naive. You don't know the world. This man could be taking advantage of your situation. That's not true, protested David. Oh, really? Then tell me, what are your intentions with my daughter and grandson? The question caught David off guard. He really hadn't thought in terms of intentions. Everything had happened naturally, day by day. I want to help her, protect her. And then? When you get tired of this boat game, what will happen to them? David didn't know how to respond. Richard took advantage of the silence to press further. See, you don't have a plan. You're playing with my daughter and grandson's lives. It's not a game, said David, finding his voice again. I'm offering them a home and a family. A family? You barely know each other. Sometimes family isn't the one we're born into, but the one we choose, said Jennifer, looking directly at her father. Richard looked as if he'd been slapped in the face. Jennifer, you're making a mistake you'll regret for the rest of your life. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. The businessman fell silent for long seconds, studying his daughter and David. Finally, he sighed deeply. Fine. You want to be stubborn? Be stubborn. But when everything goes wrong, don't come looking for me. Dad, no. You've made your choice. Now you'll have to live with the consequences. Richard turned to leave but stopped at the door. David, I don't know what your personal problems are, but my daughter isn't the solution to them. Think about that. He left, leaving a heavy silence on the boat. Jennifer began to cry quietly, and David hugged her without thinking. He's right, isn't he? She whispered. We barely know each other. We don't know if this will work. Jennifer, look at me, said David, holding her face in his hands. It's true we haven't known each other long, but in these 2 weeks you and Ethan have become the most important thing in my life. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want to discover it with you. And if it doesn't work, if we have disagreements, what will happen to Ethan? Then we'll work it out like adults, but I won't give up before trying. Ethan, who had stayed quiet during the whole argument, started to cry. Jennifer soothed him, but David noticed she was very shaken. How about we take the boat out for a bit, he suggested. The motion might help Ethan sleep and we can talk better out at sea. Jennifer agreed, and they sailed out of the harbor. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Ethan quickly fell asleep in his mother's arms, lulled by the gentle rocking of the boat. David, can I tell you something? Said Jennifer when they were far from shore. Of course. My father wasn't completely wrong. I really don't know anything about the world. I've always lived in a bubble, protected by my family. I don't know what it's like to earn a living, pay bills, raise a child without help. And I don't know what it's like to be a father or to have a real family. I think we can learn together. But what if I can't? What if I'm not a good mother? Jennifer, you ran away from home to protect your son. You're living on a boat, without comfort, without anything, just to keep Ethan with you. If that's not being a good mother, I don't know what is. She smiled through her tears. Sometimes I feel like I'm on a roller coaster. One moment I'm happy and hopeful, the next I'm afraid of everything. That's normal. Big changes are scary indeed. They stayed silent for a while, watching the stars beginning to appear in the sky. David felt a peace he hadn't experienced in a long time. David. Thank you for everything, for letting me stay, for taking care of us, for standing up to my father. Thank you for giving me a reason to keep trying. When they returned to the harbor, there was a surprise waiting for them. An elegant woman in her 50s was sitting on a bench near the pier. When she saw the boat approaching, she stood up and waved. Jennifer, do you know who that is? Asked David. Jennifer looked carefully and her face lit up. It's my mother. Mrs. Patricia Thompson was a more mature version of Jennifer, same brown hair, same gentle smile, but there was a sadness in her eyes that touched David immediately. Mom, said Jennifer, getting off the boat with Ethan in her arms. "Hi, honey," replied Patricia, her voice choked. Mother and daughter hugged for a long time, and David stayed a bit apart, respecting their moment. "Mom, how did you know where I was?" "Your father told me he had found you. I came as soon as he left." "Did he send you to come get me?" "No. I came because I wanted to, because I needed to see my grandson." Patricia looked at Ethan, who was awake and curious. "He's beautiful, Jennifer, just like you when you were a baby. Do you want to hold him?" "May I?" Jennifer passed Ethan to his grandmother's arms, and David saw tears streaming down Patricia's face. "Hi, my prince," she murmured to the baby. "Grandma waited so long to meet you." "Mom, why didn't you say anything when Dad wanted me to give him up for adoption?" Patricia took a deep breath before answering. "Because I'm a coward, honey. I always have been. Your father always made the decisions, and I just agreed. But when you ran away, when I realized I could lose you and my grandson forever, I understood it was time to be brave." "What do you mean?" "I mean I don't agree with your father. I never did. Ethan is my grandson, and you are my daughter. I don't want you to be adopted by strangers." David discreetly approached. "Mrs. Patricia, I'm David. I'm very nice to meet you." "Ah, you're the young man who's been taking care of my daughter. Thank you for everything you've done." "It's been a pleasure to meet them." Patricia studied David carefully. "May I ask a personal question?" "Of course. What are your intentions with my daughter?" David smiled. It was the second time that day he'd heard that question. "Mrs. Patricia, I'm in love with your daughter, and with Ethan too. I want to take care of them, protect them, build a family together." Jennifer looked at him surprised. It was the first time he had spoken about his feelings so directly. "And you, honey?" asked Patricia. "How do you feel about him?" Jennifer took her time to answer, but when she did, her voice was firm. "I'm in love too. David came into my life when I needed him most. He's kind, hard-working, affectionate with Ethan. I can't imagine my life without him." David felt his heart race. They had declared their feelings for each other in front of Jennifer's mother, completely spontaneously. "Well, then I think I have a proposal for you," said Patricia with a smile. "What proposal?" asked Jennifer. "I have a bank account your father doesn't know about. Money I inherited from my mother and saved all these years. I want to give that money to you." "Mom, I can't accept—" "Of course you can. It's the money from your inheritance, which I was saving to give you when you got married. Consider that the marriage has come earlier than expected." David and Jennifer exchanged glances, surprised. "Mrs. Patricia, this is very generous, but—" "No buts. You'll need money to take care of Ethan and get this boat running properly, and I'll have peace of mind knowing I helped you." "What about your husband?" asked David. "Won't he be angry?" "Probably. But it's time for me to stop worrying about what Richard will think. My daughter and grandson are more important." Patricia stayed with them for 2 more hours, getting to know Ethan and talking about their plans for the future. When she said goodbye, she left an envelope with David. "There's enough money in there for you to live comfortably for a good while. Use it wisely." "Mrs. Patricia, we don't know how to thank you," said David. "Take care of each other, and send me news about my grandson." "You'll always be welcome here," said Jennifer, hugging her mother. "I know, dear, and you'll always have a place in my home no matter what your father says." After Patricia left, David and Jennifer sat on the deck, still processing everything that had happened. "It was an intense day," said David. "It was, but it ended well. Jennifer, what I told your mother about being in love, it was true. I hope it didn't scare you." "It didn't scare me. What I said was true too." David moved closer to her, and for the first time they kissed. It was a gentle kiss, full of tenderness and promises for the future. "And now?" asked Jennifer. "Now we sleep. Tomorrow we'll figure out the rest." David: "Yes? Thank you for teaching me that sometimes running away is the bravest way to face problems." The next morning they were awakened by loud voices at the pier. David got up and saw a man arguing with the marina employee. "What's going on?" asked Jennifer, appearing beside him. "I don't know. I'll check." David got off the boat and approached the argument. "Excuse me, what's the problem?" The man who was arguing turned around. David recognized him immediately. It was Brian, his former business partner. "David, good to see you. I need to talk to you." "We have nothing to discuss, Brian." "Of course we do. It's about the company." "What company? You took everything." "That's exactly what I want to talk about. I made a mistake, David. A big one." David studied his ex-partner's face. Brian looked tired, stressed. "What kind of mistake?" "I found out some things about Jessica, about what she was doing behind our backs. Jessica was David's ex-wife." "What things?" "She's been embezzling money from the company for over a year, to an account in her name. I only found out now when I was doing the final audit." David felt his blood run cold. "How much money?" "Almost $1 million. $1 million? How?" "She had access to the financial systems because you trusted her. She was transferring small amounts regularly. I didn't notice because she was clever, never took enough to draw attention." David had to lean against a piling to keep from falling. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because she's trying to do the same thing to me. She found out I'm in debt because of her separation from you, and now she wants me to sign papers transferring part of the company to her." "And you're not going to sign?" "Of course not. That's why I came looking for you. We need to join forces against her." David looked back and saw Jennifer watching the conversation from the boat's window. She was holding Ethan and looked worried. "Brian, you betrayed our partnership and our friendship. Why should I trust you now?" "Because now I know I was manipulated too. Jessica planned all this, David. She wanted the whole company for herself and used me to get you out of the way. That doesn't change the fact that you slept with my wife." "I know, and I regret it every day. But if we don't do something, she'll get what she wants and we'll both end up with nothing." David thought quickly. If Brian was telling the truth, Jessica was even more calculating than he had imagined, and that meant there might be a chance to recover some of what he had lost. "What are you proposing?" "That we take legal action against her together. With the evidence I have, we can overturn the property division and even sue her for fraud." "What evidence?" "I have bank statements, transfer receipts, everything. And I also have recordings of conversations where she admits to the scheme." David boarded the boat to talk to Jennifer about the situation. "What's wrong? You've gone pale," she said. David told her everything Brian had revealed. Jennifer listened quietly, asking a few specific questions. "David, if it's true, this changes everything. You could not only get your company back, but also sue your ex-wife for fraud." "But can I trust Brian? He already betrayed me once." "From what you've told me, it seems he was also a victim of Jessica. And if he has the evidence, do you think I should accept?" "I think we should examine the evidence first. If it's solid, it's worth a try." David went back to talk to Brian. "All right, but I want to see this evidence before deciding anything." "Of course. It's all in my car." Brian brought over a folder full of documents. David and Jennifer carefully reviewed everything. The evidence was truly impressive. "This is enough to take down Jessica," said Jennifer, "and also to invalidate much of the divorce settlement." "Jennifer, would you help us put together the lawsuit?" asked Brian. "I haven't graduated yet." "But you know more about law than anyone here," said David. "Okay, I can help organize the documentation and legal strategies." In the following days, the three of them worked intensively building the case against Jessica. Jennifer showed incredible talent for organizing evidence and finding legal precedents. "Where did you learn all this?" asked Brian, impressed. "In college, and by reading a lot over the past few years. You should go back to school. It's a waste not to graduate." Jennifer looked at Ethan, who was playing on the deck. "I'm not sure if that would be possible now." "Why not?" asked David. "With the money your mother left, and if we recover the company, you could finish college." "And who would take care of Ethan?" "I would. I can work from home, look after him during the day. You study at night." Jennifer smiled, imagining the possibility. That would be a dream. 2 weeks later, they filed the lawsuit against Jessica. Her reaction was immediate and furious. She showed up at the harbor the next day, accompanied by 2 lawyers. "David, come out here. I need to talk to you," she shouted from the pier. David got off the boat, followed by Jennifer carrying Ethan. "Jessica, What's this about a lawsuit? Have you lost your mind? I lost my mind by not realizing what you were doing for so long. I don't know what you're talking about. No? Then maybe these bank statements will refresh your memory, said David, showing some documents. Jessica paled when she saw the papers. Who is she? Asked Jessica, looking suspiciously at Jennifer. Someone who knows much more about law than your lawyers, replied David. You're messing with dangerous people, David. You might regret it. The only dangerous person here is you, Jessica. Look, let's stop this nonsense. I can withdraw the request to revise the settlement if you drop this ridiculous lawsuit. No, it's too late now. You'll have to return everything you stole and face criminal charges too. Jessica looked at her own lawyers, who seemed uncomfortable with the situation. This isn't over, she said, walking away. Jessica, shouted David, you forgot something. What? For 15 years I thought I had a bad marriage, but at least it was honest. Now I've discovered not even that was true. Thank you for teaching me the difference between a wife and a true partner. David looked at Jennifer as he spoke, and she smiled at him. Jessica left furiously, and David felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. How do you feel? Asked Jennifer. Free. For the first time in years, I feel completely free. That night, they celebrated with a special dinner on the boat's deck. Ethan was particularly happy, laughing and playing with his parents. David, can I ask you a question? Said Jennifer. Always. Do you miss your previous life? The company, the routine, the comforts? David thought before answering. You know, Jennifer, I worked for 20 years to build a life I thought I wanted. Big house, expensive car, thriving business. But I've never been as happy as in the last few months here on this old boat with you and Ethan. Even with all the difficulties? Especially because of the difficulties, they showed us what we're capable of when we work together. And the future. Have you thought about what we want to do? I have some ideas. What about you? Me too. How about we discuss it tomorrow? Today I just want to enjoy this moment. They stayed on the deck until late, watching the stars and dreaming dreams. Ethan fell asleep between them, and David felt that this was the picture of perfect happiness. The next day, an elderly man appeared on the pier looking for them. It was Walter, the boat's former owner. Good morning, folks. How's the sea spirit? Walter, greeted David. The boat is great. Jennifer here is an expert with engines. Good to hear that. Actually, I came because I found out something interesting about this boat. What is it? Do you know its history? No, you never told me. Well, at the time of the sale, I didn't think it was important. But after you bought it, I got curious and decided to do some research. Walter sat in a chair and began to tell the story. This boat belonged to a famous navigator in the 70s and 80s, Captain Samuel Parker. He made several important expeditions along the U.S. coast. Really? Asked Jennifer, interested. Yes, and you know what else? When he died, 15 years ago, he left some things hidden on the boat. Valuable things. David and Jennifer exchanged glances. What kind of things? Logbooks, old maps, some historical navigation pieces, in the most unlikely places. How do you know this? Because I finally got in touch with his daughter. She confirmed it to me. The captain always said he had left treasures for those who truly loved the sea. And where would these things be? His daughter couldn't say. She only said her father was very creative at hiding things. David and Jennifer spent the rest of the day searching for secret compartments on the boat. Ethan seemed to enjoy the game, laughing whenever they bent down to look in strange places. It was Jennifer who found the first hiding place. David, come here, she shouted from the main cabin. David ran to where she was. Jennifer had discovered that one of the floorboards was loose. Look at this, she said, lifting the board. Underneath was a small compartment containing an old logbook and some maps. Amazing, exclaimed David. They opened the logbook and began to read. The first pages were fascinating accounts of Captain Samuel's voyages. Listen to this, said Jennifer, reading a passage. I leave these treasures not for the gold they may be worth, but for the history they carry. Whoever finds these memories will know that the true treasure is in the journey, not the destination. Beautiful, said David. "There's more. I hope whoever finds these words is someone who, like me, learned to find a family at sea." David and Jennifer looked at each other emotionally. It was as if Captain Samuel had written those words specifically for them. They continued searching and found 2 more hiding spots. One behind the control panel, another in a false compartment in the kitchen ceiling. In total, they found 3 logbooks, several old maps, a bronze sextant, a miniature gold anchor, and various historical navigation charts. In the last logbook, they found an even bigger surprise. "David, look at this final entry," said Jennifer, pointing to a page. David read aloud, "Whoever finds this treasure has found more than gold. They've found a home. Use these assets to build the life you've always dreamed of. The sea spirit blesses all who sail with love." "It's as if he knew we would find it," murmured Jennifer. The next day, they took the items to be appraised by an expert in nautical antiques. The results surprised them. "These items are worth a fortune," said the appraiser, "especially the logbooks. Collectors would pay well for them. I estimate that in total you have about 500,000 reais in historical objects." David and Jennifer were speechless. 500,000, repeated David. "At least, maybe more, depending on the buyer." On the way back to the boat, they discussed what to do with the money. "We can finish the boat renovation completely," said David. "And I can go back to college," added Jennifer. "And maybe even start a small business," David continued. "What kind of business?" "I thought about nautical tourism, boat tours, navigation lessons. We have the knowledge, we have the equipment. I love the idea, and I can help with the legal and administrative part. And Ethan can grow up at sea, as a child should grow up." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us, who are just starting out, now continuing. That night, they received an unexpected visit. It was Patricia, Jennifer's mother, but this time she wasn't alone. An elegant man in his 60s accompanied her. "Mom," said Jennifer, surprised, "what are you doing here?" "Hi, honey. I want you to meet attorney Robert Anderson. He's a lawyer." David and Jennifer exchanged worried glances. "Don't worry," said Patricia, noticing the tension. "He's here to help." Attorney Robert approached with a smile. "Actually, I'm here at Mrs. Patricia's request. She told me about your situation and about the lawsuit against your ex-wife, David." "What do you mean?" asked David. "Mrs. Patricia thought you might need an experienced lawyer. I've been working for 30 years in business and family law. I'd like to offer my services." "Doctor, we can't afford a lawyer. Don't worry about that. Consider it an early wedding gift." "Wedding?" asked David and Jennifer at the same time. Patricia smiled. "It's obvious you're going to get married. Anyone can see how much you love each other." "Mom," protested Jennifer, blushing. "What? It's true. And Ethan needs a father officially, don't you think?" Attorney Robert laughed at the situation. "Well, when you decide to marry, I can handle all the paperwork too." "Thank you, Doctor. That's very kind," said David. "Actually, I have news about your case against Jessica," said Attorney Robert, turning serious. "What news?" "I received the documents you prepared. The work is excellent, by the way. Jennifer has real talent for law." "Thank you," said Jennifer, smiling. "And the lawsuit?" asked David. "It will work out. The evidence is solid, but Jessica tried a counterattack." "What do you mean?" "She's claiming you were hiding assets from her, specifically this boat. But that's a lie. I know, and I can prove it. But she also hired investigators to dig into your current life." David felt a chill in his stomach. "What kind of things?" "They know Jennifer comes from an influential family. They know about her running away from home. And they found out about the valuable items you discovered on the boat." "How do they know that?" "They probably followed you to the appraiser." Jennifer picked up Ethan, who was playing on the floor, and held him tightly. "What does this mean?" she asked. "It means Jessica will try to use this information against you, likely claiming David took advantage of Jennifer's vulnerable situation." "That's ridiculous," David protested. "I know. But in law, sometimes appearances matter more than reality." Patricia, who had remained quiet throughout the conversation, finally spoke. "Attorney Robert, is there any way to protect my daughter and grandson?" Yes. But you need to make some quick decisions. What decisions? Asked Jennifer. First, it would be good if you got married officially. That would make it harder for anyone to claim David is taking advantage of you. Second, we need to formalize Ethan's situation. Adoption by David, or at least shared custody. And third? Asked David. Third, it would be helpful if Jennifer returned to college. It would show she's in control of her own life, not being manipulated. David and Jennifer exchanged glances. These were important decisions that would affect their entire lives. How long do we have to decide? Asked David. Jessica will probably file a new court request in 1 or 2 weeks. All right, we'll think it over and give you an answer tomorrow. After attorney Robert and Patricia left, David and Jennifer stayed on the deck discussing their options. What do you think? Asked David. About marriage? About everything? Jennifer fell silent for a few minutes, organizing her thoughts. David, I love you, and I know you love me. But getting married because of a lawsuit, that's not how I imagined it. How did you imagine it? I imagined that when the time came, it would be because we were both completely sure, not forced by circumstances. David understood perfectly. What if I told you I'm completely sure that I'd marry you today if you wanted, even if there were no lawsuit? Really? Jennifer, these past few months have been the best of my life. I wake up every day happy knowing you and Ethan are here. I can't imagine a future without you. I feel the same way, but I'm scared. Scared of making important decisions too quickly. That's a natural fear, I have it too. And about adopting Ethan. Jennifer, I love that boy as if he were my biological son. Adopting him officially would just formalize what I already feel in my heart. Jennifer began to cry. Why are you crying? Asked David, concerned. Because I never thought I could be this happy. When I ran away from home, I thought I had lost everything, that Ethan and I would always be alone. And now? Now I feel like I've found a real family. David kissed her gently. So shall we make it official? Let's. The next day they communicated their decision to attorney Robert, who was very pleased. Excellent. I'll start preparing all the documentation for the wedding and the adoption. Attorney, how long will it take? Asked Jennifer. If we can expedite things, we can get everything done in 2 weeks. And where would the ceremony be? Asked David. You can choose. Courthouse, church, or even here on the boat. David looked at Jennifer. How about right here on the deck at sunset? Perfect, she replied, smiling. The following 2 weeks were intense. Besides preparing the marriage and adoption documents, they had to deal with Sandra's legal maneuvers, who had indeed filed new claims against David. Attorney Robert, however, was prepared. She's claiming that David took advantage of Jennifer's vulnerability to gain access to the valuable objects from the boat, he explained. How do we refute that? Asked David. Simple. We have witnesses that you found the objects after you were already together. We have the testimony of Walter, the former owner of the boat, and we have Mrs. Patricia herself, who can testify about your relationship. And will that be enough? It will, especially when the judge learns that you're getting married and that David is adopting Ethan. It shows real commitment, not opportunism. Finally, the wedding day arrived. Patricia had helped Jennifer choose a simple yet elegant dress. David wore a light blue suit that matched the sea. Ethan, now almost 1 year old, wore a little white outfit and carried the rings on a small cushion. The ceremony took place on the deck of the Sea Spirit at sunset. Present were Patricia, attorney Robert, Walter, Brian, who had become a true friend, and some neighbors from the harbor who had followed the couple's story. The justice of the peace was a friendly man who had agreed to perform the ceremony on the boat. David Wilson, do you take Jennifer Thompson as your wife, promising to love, respect, and protect her in all life circumstances? I do. Jennifer Thompson, do you take David Wilson as your husband, promising to love, respect, and support him in all life circumstances? I do. And do you both promise to be loving and dedicated parents to Ethan, raising him with care and wisdom? We do, they answered together. When the judge declared them husband and wife, the sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky orange and pink. It was the most beautiful wedding any of those present had ever seen. "You may now kiss," said the judge. David and Jennifer kissed as everyone applauded. Ethan, in Patricia's arms, clapped his hands and laughed, as if he understood the importance of the moment. "And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to proceed with the adoption," said the judge. "Right here?" asked David, surprised. "Why not? We have all the necessary signatures." Attorney Robert handed the final papers to David to sign. When he finished, the judge smiled. "David Wilson, you are now officially the legal father of Ethan James Wilson. Congratulations to the new family." Everyone applauded again, and David picked up Ethan, moved. "Hi, son," he whispered to the boy. Ethan hugged him tightly, as if he also understood that they were now truly a family. The party continued late into the night. Patricia had arranged for a simple but delicious cake, and Walter brought champagne for the toast. "Our toast to the navigators of love," said Walter, raising his glass. "To the navigators of love," everyone repeated. When the guests left, David, Jennifer, and Ethan were alone on the deck, watching the stars. "How do you feel, Mrs. Wilson?" asked David. "Complete," replied Jennifer. "For the first time in my life, I feel complete." "And you, Ethan?" David said to the boy, who was almost asleep. "How does it feel to have a daddy officially?" Ethan smiled and snuggled closer in David's lap. "I think he approves," said Jennifer, laughing. "Jennifer?" "Yes?" "Thank you for teaching me what a real family is. Thank you for showing me that love can appear in the most unexpected moments." A week after the wedding, they received the news that they had won the case against Jessica. She was forced to return all the embezzled money and also pay a fine for fraud. "How much money are we getting back?" asked Jennifer. "With the embezzled money, plus the compensation, plus the revision of the asset division, about 2 million reais, replied Attorney Robert. David was shocked. 2 million. "And that's not counting the company, which also returns to your hands." "The company too?" "Jessica lost her rights to it when she was convicted of fraud." David couldn't believe it. In a few months, he had gone from a bankrupt and betrayed man to a successful businessman, married and a father. "What are we going to do with so much money?" asked Jennifer. "First, you're going to finish college," said David. "And then we'll expand our nautical tourism business, buy more boats, hire employees." "And the original company?" "I'm going to sell it. I don't want anything that reminds me of the past anymore." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. Our life is here now, at sea, with our family." Jennifer smiled and kissed her husband. "I love you, David Wilson." "I love you too, Jennifer Wilson." 6 months later, Jennifer was back in college in her last semester of law. David had sold the old company and invested the money in a fleet of boats for nautical tourism. The business was thriving. They offered everything from romantic sunset cruises to sailing lessons for beginners. Jennifer handled the legal and administrative side, and David took care of operations. Ethan, now almost 2 years old, was developing very well. He had learned to walk on the deck of the Sea Spirit, and his first words were "Daddy" and "Mommy." "David, I got an interesting proposal today," said Jennifer, arriving from college. "What proposal?" "One of my professors wants me to write an article on maritime law, based on our experience." "That's great. Are you going to accept?" "I am. And you know what else?" "He suggested that I consider getting a master's degree after graduation." "And do you want to?" "I do. But only if you agree to take care of Ethan during my studies." "Of course I agree. In fact, I was already thinking about hiring more people for the business anyway. That way I can spend more time with both of you." That evening they were on the deck of the Sea Spirit when they saw a speedboat approaching. It was Patricia, who now visited regularly. "Grandma!" shouted Ethan, running to the pier. "Hi, my prince," said Patricia, picking up her grandson in her arms. "Mom, what a surprise," said Jennifer. "I brought some news," said Patricia with a mysterious smile. "What news?" asked David and Jennifer together. "Your father wants to talk to you." "Dad?" Jennifer was surprised. He realized he was wrong. He wants to apologize and get to know his son-in-law and grandson better. "I don't know, Mom. After everything that happened." "Daughter, he's your father. And Ethan's grandfather." I think they deserve a chance. David held Jennifer's hand. The decision is yours, he said. Whatever you decide, I support you. Jennifer thought for a few moments. Okay, he can come. But here on the boat, on our turf. Perfect. He's coming tomorrow afternoon. The next day, Richard Thompson arrived at the harbour in a simple car, driving himself. There were no bodyguards, no pomp. He was just a father wanting to reconnect with his daughter. Jennifer, he said, getting out of the car. Dad. They hugged, a bit hesitant at first, but soon the hug grew tighter. I'm sorry, said Richard, for everything. I was wrong. Thank you for coming. Richard turned to David. David, isn't it? I apologize for my behavior the first time we met. Don't worry, sir, I understand. You were protecting your daughter. I was, but in the wrong way. Ethan, who had been hiding behind Jennifer, now approached his grandfather curiously. And you must be Ethan, said Richard, crouching down to the boy's level. Ethan looked at him carefully for a few seconds, then smiled and stretched out his little arms. Grandpa. Richard picked up his grandson, his eyes filled with tears. Hi, my grandson. Grandpa loves you very much. Dad, would you like to see the boat? Asked Jennifer. Of course, they spent the whole afternoon talking and reconnecting. Richard was impressed with the transformation of the sea spirit and the business that David and Jennifer had built. You've achieved something I never could, he said at the end of the visit. What? Asked David. Building something together as a true partnership. I always wanted to control everything by myself. It's never too late to learn, said Jennifer. That's true. In fact, I have a proposal for you. What proposal? Asked David. I want to invest in your business, not as a controlling partner, but as a silent partner. You keep running it. I just help with capital and contacts. David and Jennifer exchanged glances. We'll think about it, said Jennifer. Of course, there's no rush. When Richard left, the family stayed on deck discussing the proposal. What do you think? Asked Jennifer. I think your father has really changed, and the investment could help us grow faster. But aren't you afraid he might try to take control of the business? A little, but I think we can establish clear rules from the start. So we accept. 1 year later, the Wilsons' nautical tourism business had become the largest in the region. They had a fleet of 15 boats, 20 employees, and offered all kinds of sea tours. Jennifer had graduated with honors in law at Columbia University and started her master's degree. David had become an experienced and respected captain in the harbor. Ethan, now 3 years old, constantly talked about boats and fish and could already swim better than many older children. David, I have some news, said Jennifer one morning while they were having coffee on deck. What news? I'm pregnant. David nearly spilled his coffee cup. Pregnant? Really? Really. 2 months along. David stood up and hugged her tightly. This is wonderful. Ethan is going to have a little brother or sister. And we're going to have another child. Ethan, who was playing with his toy boats, looked at his parents. What happened? Why are you so happy? Because you're going to be a big brother, said Jennifer. Really? Ethan's eyes lit up. Really? Can I teach him how to sail? Of course, said David, laughing. That night, they were on deck watching the stars when David reflected. Jennifer, remember when I bought this boat? I was running away from everything, thinking my life was over. I remember. I never imagined I'd be here today. Married, father of 2 children, owner of a thriving business. Life has those surprises. And you? Do you regret anything? Nothing. Not even running away from home that day. Why? Because if I hadn't run away, I never would have met you. And Ethan wouldn't have the wonderful father he has today. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for taking us in. They stayed silent for a few minutes, just enjoying the peace of the moment. David? Yes. I think Captain Samuel would be proud of what we've done with the sea spirit. Why? Because he wanted whoever found the boat to build a family at sea, and that's exactly what we did. David smiled, looking at the deck where Ethan was sleeping in a small hammock. That's true, we built a family at sea, and now it's going to grow even more. Yes, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for us. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. Together, agreed David, kissing his wife. That night, as the sea spirit gently rocked in the waters of San Diego Harbor, the Wilson family slept peacefully, knowing they had not only found each other, but also their true home. The man who once bought an old boat to escape his past had discovered that sometimes running away is the best way to find exactly what we were looking for. End of the story. Now tell us what you thought of the story and where you're watching from. If you have any similar experiences to share with us, leave them in the comments with sincere words. Do you believe David and Jennifer made the right decisions? We'd love to read your opinion. Thank you so much for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other exciting stories.